Good morning. That's right. My name is Frank Victor Rossler III, prodigal son of the Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City. I am a 6-foot-tall Caucasian male, cisgender male, with wearing a mustard yellow t-shirt and polyester blue pants. I want to welcome you today to the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in your brokenness and in your wholeness. No matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming, we greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us today on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're joining us from Oklahoma City, what neighborhood do you reside? If you're elsewhere, what city are you in? Let us know. We'd love to find out. The prelude prepares us for worship today. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope.
Again, good morning. I am Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. And for those who may be joining us online without video, or who may be blind or have a visual impairment, we share our descriptors out of a spirit of inclusiveness. And so I will say that I am a white woman with silvering hair that is a little pink today. And in the spirit of moving in the second part of our Barbenheimer series, I am wearing a pink skirt. It's carryover from Barbie, but it is a mid-century modern atomic theme to go with the Oppenheimer. So would you please join me in a centering breath, taking a deep breath in, letting it go. As we come into this sacred time together, let us center ourselves in the universe. We are in a universe that is almost 14 billion years old, although more recent discoveries indicate it may be twice that age. We are one of hundreds of billions of galaxies. In the Milky Way, our sun is one of hundreds of billions of suns. Our solar system is based on one of the spiral arms of the Milky Way, the Orion Spur. We're not at the very edge of our galaxy, but we are certainly not at the center of it either. All of it is moving, changing, stars being born and merging and dying. And moving from the very large to the very, very, very small. We are oxygen. We are carbon, we are hydrogen and nitrogen. Atoms made of subatomic particles, protons, perhaps neutrons, surrounded by an electron cloud, but mostly empty space. Moving deeper into the atom, there are subatomic particles and a sea of dense particles and antiparticles. Energy incredibly weak and extremely strong. Again, all of it changing, moving, transforming. And in the midst of all of this motion, beyond and within, there is a stillness, there is a consciousness. There is this time, this place, these people, now. Would you please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn? It's in the Teal hymnal. It's number 1003. The title and the words come from the title of an oil painting by Paul Gauguin, which he painted in 1898. We're going to try to do this as a round. I know, it's been really hot. Many of us are very tired, but we're going to give it a try. You got this. Oh yeah, you got this. And if you don't, it's fine. You're not being graded. We're going to obey the repeat signs. So each line we sing twice. There are going to be 4 groups. I will lead the first group, and it is going to be from Peggy and Pat and Buzz back through, let's see, Corey, you want to through there, okay? And Liz, okay, so you guys you're with me. Our second group is Lana. And let's have that second group, let's have that through David and Carrie. All right, that's our second group. Third group is Becky. Becky is going to be with the folks in the balcony and the people there in that back section. And then Diane is going to be in the back section there. So again, we're going to obey the repeat sign. So each line we sing twice. Watch your leader. Again, leaders, can you raise your hand? Lana, where are you? Becky's right there. Diane's right there. I'm right here. When you get to that last line, those of us who get there first, we're just going to keep doing it over and over and over until everybody else catches up with us. And we're going to sing that last line through all together one last time. Does this kind of make sense? Yeah? Okay. And Steve is going to help us out with the tune. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? The little echo was perfectly good. Thank you. Be seated.
Reflection. My reflection today is a little bit about my history, my past. And as a boy in the mid and late 80s, I noticed that access to the world around me was limited by the physical and cultural constraints at the time. Food, entertainment, social gatherings were all things you had to do physically in person. Information was something you had to get from a library or another physical asset or resource, unless that resource was delivered to you, to your mailbox, or to your front door. And fiscal stability was considered an obtainable goal, even with a single paycheck. Back then, if I wanted access to something, I had to get that access. I had to get that thing I wanted. However, one thing that made that access a little bit easier to manage was a telephone line. The telephone was a piece of technology that connected us over time and distance. and I had access to commercial-grade telecom hardware. When I was young, my father worked for one of the largest telecom providers in the nation, known as American Telephone and Telegraph Company. You probably understand the moniker AT&T a little bit better. Originally started as part of the Bell systems in 1882, AT&T was well known and established as a primary source of telecommunications throughout the United States. As the telecommunications industry grew, so did the constantly evolving technology and hardware behind the scenes, doing all the hard work and all the hard lifting. Eventually, advancements in technology became disconnected from the hardwired world, and by 1973, Motorola had developed the first mobile telecommunications unit, being sold as the next generation business tool. Connecting people through the use of voice telecom and teletype systems brought the world one step closer to accessing information and just a bit easier than it was before. But these advancements in technology were only just the beginning. Around the same time that telecommunication technology was being enveloped by the culture around, the world of the internet was also taking shape. In October of 1969, ARPANET was starting to develop the first resource-sharing network. This developed originally by DARPA. ARPANET was the first of its kind technology that connected two or more computers together, sharing computer resources and computer information. This idea of connecting these computers together in a network fundamentally changed the perception and the concept of data as information and how to manipulate that information. Eventually, advancements in economic opportunities of the commercial industry led Cornell University to develop to develop hypertext transfer protocol, or HTTP, and hypertext markup language, HTML, and the first web browser to access the internet. And these are all the first developing tools that we see today to access this information. These networks and language that were the building blocks for the idea and framework of the internet we know today, connecting our computers and our computer devices together over a much larger and expansive system of networks and computers to share information, data, and resources. Watching and growing up alongside the advancements of telecommunication technology with the marriage of connected resources like our internets and intranets have felt like a never-ending decathlon event. And I had a backstage pass to watch the show from behind the curtain. As a man of the 21st century, access to the world around me is not limited to what but I am given. Food, entertainment, and social gatherings all happen virtually as long as there's a camera or a delivery service to provide that food to me. Information is a search bar away, and fiscal stability is something you plan for in your retirement. My Unitarian faith has helped keep me humble in this world, and I believe this revolution in access to information helps us embrace our differences, widen our circle, and respect the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are all a part.
Thank you, Frank. Every Sunday we take an offering, and since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of August, our Change for Change partner is CSU Youth Services. CSU is a low-barrier, identity-affirming space in Oklahoma City where unhoused youth find the shelter and support they need to pursue the life they want. For those of you who are in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment, we'll be passing the offering plate. And if you're not able to make a gift today, no worries. We invite you to hold that plate and wish Sisu well. And if you're watching us online, please make your gift by sending a check to First Unitarian. Just write change for change in the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, the number 1uc.org. During the offering, we'll hear an offertory. This is a Sakura 17th century Japanese folk song. The alternative lyrics were written to commemorate the anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing. It is a song of mourning, but also of rebirth and regrowth.
Please join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation.
snow falling on the living and on the dead. And in the same way, both the cherry blooms and the ashes of Hiroshima fall on us all. We are all connected. We remember today that we are connected to the people, the animals, the beings of Maui. We are connected in their suffering. We are connected in their struggle to find loved ones, to return to life. We are connected today to the families of the 3 who were killed while shopping in Jacksonville, Florida. We are connected in their pain. We are connected in their asking why. We must acknowledge that we too are connected to the racist white supremacists who killed those individuals with guns emblazoned with swastikas. We are connected to the family of the young person who was shot to death at a football game in Choctaw on Friday night. We are connected to the other 2 individuals who were shot and who are, we pray, recovering from their wounds. We are connected to all who were there, who were so afraid. We are connected to those within our own congregation who are struggling with health concerns. Our hearts go out to our beloved Ingrid Young, who is in the hospital with complications from chemotherapy. We are connected to all whose hearts are broken, missing a loved one. We are connected to those who are regaining their health after surgery or after an illness. We are connected to all those who may have secret struggles with poverty, financial problems, addiction, illness that they do not wish to have made public. We are with all of these and their struggles. We hold them in our care as we are held in care. We are connected too in our joys. In the midst of so much struggle, there is still joy. We are connected to the plants and the animals here in Oklahoma City that are breathing a little bit of a breath of relief as the heat lifts, at least for a while. We are connected to our beloved Jack and Nancy Blankenship, who are celebrating their 67th wedding anniversary. We are connected to all of those who are excited about the start of the new school year, and those who are a little afraid. We are one. In our struggles, in our joys, in our challenges, in our pain, and our laughter, we are connected.
invite you to remain in a spirit of meditation as we hear our anthem from members of our choir. This music was written by previous choir director, music director Beverly McClary. The words come from astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. This music was commissioned by our own Paula Singer. We are all connected.
While they're being seated, I forgot to mention one joy. This weekend, on Friday night, we had 17 youth who stayed here at the church and a lock-in. So I want to lift that up, how joyous that is, and thank all of the volunteers who helped to make that possible. It was followed then last night, I guess, by a lock-in of Girl Scouts. So this has been a happening place over the weekend. A couple of weeks ago, my sister sent me a link to an article that was written by two scientists that had the sensational headline, "We may have killed the only life on Mars we ever found." And above the link, my sister wrote, "Did our dad drown the Martians?" Let me back up and explain that. See, my dad was a botanist, and in the 1970s, he was doing some research at NASA on using algae as a source of oxygen on space stations. And it just happened that he was there at NASA at the time of the Viking missions to Mars. I remember my parents waking us up in the middle of the night and bundling us down some dark hallways to an auditorium where scientists were waiting to see the first images beamed back from the red planet. And as we sat there in the darkness, across the screen, moving from left to right, from the top towards the bottom corner, these little sepia squares appeared. And at first, it didn't seem like anything, an abstract painting, but eventually you could start to see in that upper right-hand corner a shape forming. And you could start to tell it was the foot of the Martian lander. It was sort of the first selfie of a spacecraft. And at that time, there was a palpable silence, and then a cheer went up. And all of these grown men with pocket protectors and a few women were crying and were hugging each other. It was the first time I remember seeing grown men crying. And I remember thinking, this is so beautiful. Science is so beautiful. And it is, but it's complicated. You see, one of the main goals of the Viking mission was to survey the Martian surface and to collect samples that could be processed and search for signs of life. And because Earth is a watery, warm planet, the scientists assumed that signs of life might emerge if water was added to the samples and then they were warmed up. But the results were negative, and it pointed to the sad conclusion that there is no life on Mars. But almost 50 years later, some scientists have doubts about the process that was used to arrive at that conclusion. They have pointed out that Mars is an arid planet that can get extremely cold. On our own planet, there are organisms that live in extremely dry conditions, even within salt rocks. And these microbes draw water directly from the atmosphere. So putting water on such organisms would be the equivalent of drowning them. And it's also possible that microbial life on Mars might contain hydrogen peroxide. Such an evolutionary adaptation would allow them to draw water from the atmosphere, and it would also keep them from freezing in the coldest temperatures. So warming such organisms and putting them in water would kind of be the equivalent of if aliens came to Earth, scooped up a bunch of human beings, threw them in the ocean, and then superheated the ocean, and then looked at it and said, huh, yeah, no life here. Science is beautiful, but there are times when it is deadly. There are some religions that deny science, and there are others that have to struggle to fit scientific discoveries into their religious worldview and creation stories. But for Unitarian Universalists, science is our creation story. We can name among our spiritual ancestors people like Michael Servetus, who is credited with the discovery of pulmonary circulation, or Joseph Priestley, who discovered oxygen. Isaac Newton was a proto-Unitarian, so is Charles Darwin. Our 1985 bylaws name 6 sources, including humanist teachings, which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science. Here at First Unitarian, as you've heard, each Sunday we light a chalice, which represents, among other things, the light of reason and science. The current version of the Values and Covenants section of our UUA bylaws include the statement, "We draw upon and are inspired by sacred, secular, and scientific understandings that help us make meaning and live into our values." So what does it mean to heed the guidance of science, or to be inspired by scientific understanding as a cornerstone of our faith? What does it mean to have a source that isn't inherently good, but not inherently evil either, that is, in its purest form, amoral? The question of the morality of science is one of the main themes in this summer's other blockbuster movie, Oppenheimer. Can I just get a sense of how many of you might have seen that movie? I'm not giving spoilers away today, so okay, good. In particular, the film circles back again and again to the theme of consequences, or how actions, including scientific discoveries, are like ripples spreading out and out, like raindrops on a pond, or like neutrons splitting off an atom and then spinning off to split more and more and more. The film tells the story of how J. Robert Oppenheimer was selected to lead the Manhattan Project, which would produce the world's first atomic weapon. And although the film is loaded with haunting moments, the part that really gave me chills was a discussion among scientists working on the bomb, where one wonders out loud if, once a chain reaction of atoms splitting begins, will it ever end? The team moves on in their work, even though they must admit at various times that there is not a zero chance that the chain reaction will go on indefinitely. That first explosion, of course, did not initiate an endless chain reaction. The world did not end. And yet the message of the film is that, in a way, the ripples of that first explosion in the New Mexican desert are still spreading out. First over Hiroshima, and then Nagasaki, and then out into the Cold War, and they continue even today, and the threat of nuclear destruction that has only become more terribly possible with the war in Ukraine. It started with one explosion in the desert. Or maybe it started even before that. not with the bomb, but with the color blue. You see, in 1704, a Swiss chemist named Johann Jacob Diesbach was trying to recreate synthetically a bright scarlet pigment that in nature could only be obtained from the blood of very rare Mexican beetles. By accident, he created blue instead, which came to be called Prussian blue. Now, without that synthetic blue, we wouldn't have Van Gogh's Starry Night. We wouldn't have Hokusai's Great Wave or Picasso's entire blue period. But something else came out of that blue. About 80 years later, another chemist mixed it with sulfuric acid, and the result was hydrogen cyanide. Cyan, by the way, is Greek for blue. Hydrogen cyanide proved to be an effective pesticide which helped to end the destruction of crops and feed more people, but it was also used as a chemical weapon in World War I. And one of the scientists who helped to develop the first chemical weapons was a German chemist named Fritz Haber. When he began his experiments with poison gas, he told his colleagues and family that he believed it would help to shorten the war. If you've seen Oppenheimer, does that sound a little familiar? For many, because of his work on chemical warfare, he was a criminal of the worst kind. And yet he won a Nobel Prize. What was that about? Well, at the beginning of the 20th century, food production could not keep up with the population. And Fritz Haber discovered a way to take nitrogen from the atmosphere and transform it into ammonia that could be used as fertilizer. People at the time described it as creating bread from air. It's believed that several billion people are alive today because of Haber's process. That may feel like an abstract thing, unless you are one of those several billion people. There are scientists who have also determined that as much as half of the nitrogen atoms in our bodies right now, feel those bodies, about up to half of the nitrogen in there came from food grown thanks to the fertilizers through Haber's process. That's why he got the Nobel Prize in chemistry. Now, here's the problem. Only a portion of fertilizer goes into the crops. As many of us know, the rest of it runs off. It pollutes the water. It gets recycled as acid rain. It leads to dead zones in the ocean. And as population explodes, that's its own problem. And of course, as especially we here in Oklahoma City know all too well, ammonia isn't only used as fertilizer. It's also a terrible explosive. So Haber's legacy, in many ways, like Oppenheimer's, was already highly problematic. But his research would allow for the development of a product that would have truly diabolical uses. Fritz Haber's work on cyanide-based pesticides led to the invention of something called Zyklon B. Zyklon meaning cyclone in German, B standing for blau, the German word for blue. And that old Prussian blue, man, it's a beautiful color. It was Zyklon B that was used to kill over 1 million Jews in the gas chambers of Auschwitz-Birkenau and other death camps. And as Haber was himself of Jewish origin, those killed by the gas included members of his own family. Ripples move out, and they collide, and they send out more ripples. And what comes of them can be evil. And what comes of them can be good. In a 1965 television documentary, Oppenheimer claimed that at the time of the first detonation of a nuclear weapon on July 16, 1945, a piece of Hindu scripture ran through his mind. It's a line from the Bhagavad Gita. "Now I am become death, destroyer of worlds." Oppenheimer might simply have been thinking at that moment of the horrific destructive power that he had helped to unleash in the world, but it's likely there was more to it, because he read Sanskrit, he knew the Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a deep dive into the basic beliefs and principles of Hinduism set within a story about a man who has a very difficult decision to make. That man, Prince Arjuna, is faced with the task of leading a battle that will surely lead to mass death and terrible suffering, and to make matters even worse, members of his own family and his closest friends are on the other side. His charioteer, though, is none other than Lord Krishna. And the line that Oppenheimer recalled comes from when Arjuna asked Krishna to show himself in all of his divine majesty. And Krishna does, becoming a being, quote, with unlimited mouths and unlimited eyes, as if hundreds of thousands of suns rose up at once into the sky. Krishna's point is that as terrible as Arjuna's decision might seem, it is not really his decision to make. It is in the hands of the divine. Life is a cycle of birth and death and birth, after all, and Arjuna must do what is his job to do without attaching himself in any way to the results. Oppenheimer had done what was his job to do, but he knew he bore responsibility for what came of it. And here is where we circle back to the relationship between Unitarian Universalism and science. It is not enough to say with pride, "We are a people of science," and just leave it at that. To take science as a source is to take responsibility. Because science is not some innocuous, abstract, innocent thing. It is not simply understanding. It is not simply discovery. Because each discovery leads to new possibilities, and each new possibility leads to actions, and each action leads to consequences. The story of Oppenheimer and Haber are tragic tales of consequences. The results of their research, their science, were sometimes in their control, but mostly not. And to his credit, Oppenheimer tried to roll back some of the worst possible outcomes of his work, but Hiroshima and Nagasaki can never be rolled back. UU theology is not so much a theology of belief, but of action. It's not enough to believe in science. We should constantly be asking ourselves, what do we do with it? We are not in the hands of an omnipotent divine who acts without our participation. Our choices matter. The same discovery that can lead to unimaginable horrors can also be used to paint a beautiful starry night. Our greatest inventions can prove to be our gravest dangers, and we must be humble enough to recognize that and to seek a better way. And next week, I'll talk a little bit about what that might look like. To say we are a people of science is to recognize that it is up to us to utilize the discoveries and the products of science in a way that is ethical, liberatory, a force for life. It is our question to ask, now, do we become death? Now, do we become a new day? Would you please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn? Again, it's in the Teal hymnal. It's number 1052, The Oneness of Everything. And it's a little bit of a long hymn, so we're just going to sing the first 2 verses.
We extinguish this chalice flame, but not the light of love and community, which continues to burn in our hearts.
Immediately after our service today, all are invited to join us in Daniel Hall. To get there, just go through these doors, down the hallway, and Daniel Hall is on your right. Please join us there for conversation, for feedback, for coffee, most importantly, perhaps. And if you are new with us today, if you are a newcomer to First Unitarian and or to Unitarian Universalism, I invite you to join me in the Eddy Room after the service for a conversation about our faith and this congregation. To get to the Eddy Room, just keep going down the hallway, go down as far as you can, take a right, and you'll find the Eddy Room down at the end of that hall. But for now, I leave you with this blessing. Go remember that you are never alone, that we are all connected, that all is one. In our joys, in our sorrows, in our struggles, we are never alone. Go to be a force for good. Go to feed the world and move the world ever closer toward justice, always, always the spirit of hope, and always with love. Love, love. May it be so.